Hey everyone, welcome back for another battle report. And this time we have Vampire Covenant facing off against Orcs and Goblins. The Vampire Covenant, it's an army that I use both as Vampire accounts and as Empire, and it's mostly based on Empire models, which I got at some time, and then I thought that Vampires were a nicer army to play at the time. So yeah, I started building it as Vampire accounts, and then later also decided to run it as Empire. Anyway, here's the Vampire Covenant list for this battle. So we have a Necromancer who's the general, he's going to hide in the back. Then we have a Vampire account with Brotherhood of the Dragon. It's a guy on a Spectral Steed, so this is very important. Spectral Steed has flying. So he cannot be very easily chaffed by other units. Legend of the Black King gives him a 1+1 armor save in total and a 4+ ward save. And for a Vampire account model, this is a very sturdy model because you have the healing and the vampiric and etc. Then we have the Barrow King Battle Standard Bearer. This guy has 4 wounds with Dusk Forged, so he's also very sturdy. And being the battle standard, he crumbles for 1 less. And then for the rest of the list, I fill out my core with ghouls and the unit of zombies. So the zombies are just for the Necromancer. And then we have the Court of the Damned, the Dark Coach, and the Winged Reapers, together with some Phantom Hosts. And I feel like these units have very nice interactions between them. So the God of the Damned gives everyone within 6 inches -2 offensive and agility. Together with the ghouls, who are agility 4 themselves, I will get to strike first at a lot of things. And also with the Winged Reapers, they also have agility 4. It makes a difference against a lot of different armies. And then the Dark Coach and the Winged Reapers, they supplement each other very well. Also, the Dark Coach and the Phantom Host supplement each other very well, because the Dark Coach enables these models to march, whilst normally they would not be able to. And also the Dark Coach has a very long charge range for something in the Vampire account roster, whilst still having a very high survivability actually. Mostly because it has a 4+ ward save, it has vampiric on a 3+, and has 5 wounds with toughness 5. So it can really chew through units that don't have a lot of static combat res. Then we go to the Orcs and Goblins army. So this is a bit of a creative army. So we have 4 different Orc Shamans on board chariots. So me and a friend of mine, we looked at the board chariots in the Orc roster, and we saw that putting a Shaman on your chariot isn't much more expensive than just having a normal chariot. And if you gave it paired weapons, you go up in offensive with your Orc Shaman, and you don't get the strength 7 hits that you normally get with your board chariot. But also stuff like Shamanism, if you get a spell off, then you can only wound the chariot on a 5+. In a lot of cases this will not make any difference because it has toughness 5 anyways. But for these really killy chariot characters, I mean, being only able to wound on a 5+ really makes a difference. Then we have 3 Goblin Chiefs on Scuttler Spiders. These are single models that have Vanguard, Scout, and Faint Flight. Being Goblin Chiefs, they only have 2 wounds each, so they're quite fragile. But compared to just Scuttler Spider units of Forest Goblins, well, I don't even know if they're cheaper, but they actually have probably higher mobility because they can hide in just very small spaces. Then for the rest of the list, we have a block of Adbashers, block of Orcs, block of Goblins, some Mounted Ashbasher, Feral Orcs, 2 Giants with clubs, a Great Green Idol, who's the Battle Standard Bearer, and 4 Scourers. So here you can see pictures of the armies in all of their glory. First the Vampire Covenant, and now you can also see the Orcs and Goblins army. Then for spell selection, I selected Pentagram of Pain for my vampire count, and then Arise, the Dead Arise, Whispers of the Veil, and Spectral Blades for my necromancer. My opponent amongst this orc shamans, well, there's quite a couple of wizard apprentices there. They just selected the number 1 spell of their lores, so they had Hand of Heaven, Awaken the Beast, and Fireball. And then the wizard adept on shamanism took Bring the Pain and Savage Fury. So then we go into the game. The secondary objective we had was Capture the Flags, and the deployment type was Counter Thrust. The map you can see is from the map pack, so we have a map with some pieces of impossible terrain on the corner left, bottom, then the building in the middle, and the top right corner is all impossible. We have 2 forests on the top left and the bottom right, and 2 lakes all the way on the top left and to the bottom right. So these maps, they come with preset objectives, but so far we just have rolled for the objectives. Considering that they are preset with some objectives, maybe we should start doing this also. Because now you can see that the impossible terrain to the top right is positioned in such a way that there's no space anymore for any unit to be deployed in front of it, whilst the other one is. And well, it looks like a very symmetrical map, but yeah, it's a little bit shifted with regards to deployment sites. Anyway, so yeah, we start deploying again, and as you can see, we do neither of us again drop our entire armies. For me, dropping the entire army, if you play with vampire counts in general, dropping your entire army isn't that interesting, because your magic is mostly focused in magic heavy lists on recovering your wounds. So it's ideal for the enemy to go first, and a lot of lists are geared towards going first for deployment, if they are geared at all towards either going first or second. But in my list I don't have a lot of magic. I don't have a lot of instances of Arise or yeah, just the spell to regain my models. So it's actually more interesting for me to also try and go first. Also because of the secondary objective, it's not an objective that demands you to capture some points of the battlefield, in which the second turn is always the best, because you can just counteract the movements of your opponent. Yeah, so we are dropping one by one, and at this point I actually decide to drop my entire army. In hindsight, I feel like I was a bit, in general, a bit aggressive in this game, in the playing style, and I don't really know why. Maybe I was just a bit tired. But yeah, so what you can see is that I run into the trouble with the building in the middle, because I can't deploy anything on the top right because of the impossible. I don't really want to deploy anything on the top left, or at least not the major part of my army, because then I'm not mobile enough to go to my opponent, because he has the 4 skewers, and yeah, they might be just goblin ballistas, so they won't do a lot of damage over time, not as much as dwarven cannons or Bretonnian scorpions or empire cannons for that matter. But still, I have 2 characters that are way too many points to be shot down by a skewer, and I have a coach that's also not too happy with these things. So I decide to basically focus on the middle, and then wherever my opponent is going to go, I can still come at him. Because I was hoping that I could position the winged creepers in such a way that they could just turn 1, come over and pass the impossible terrain. Yeah, and then my opponent counteracted my deployment in the way you can see below. It makes sense that yeah, my Winged Reapers were countered by a big block of orcs, and I should have seen this coming. I didn't, but it is actually quite a big problem for me, because yeah, it means that I can't put Winged Reapers in the position that I wanted to put them. So instead, I think it would have been better to just put them on the flank. Yeah, it could have been better. So anyway, this is the deployment. So you can see that I deployed quite aggressively, well, mainly with in mind the plan of having the Winged Reapers go turn 1 below the impossible terrain. And my opponent deployed way more defensively. With the matchup with all the Scourers and my characters not being able to hide in my units, I thought I should be very aggressive. But in hindsight, I don't think I should have, because the characters, I could also have used the Winged Reapers to just shield them from shooting. For example, place the Winged Reapers in the woods and then put the BSB and the Vampire Lord behind them, just push them up over the left flank. So I should have taken more deployments to do this. Because by that time maybe my opponent would have had to put some pieces that he was going to that were going to be useful to him against his plan on the right flank, whereas I would not have been there then. Well, that's more than enough chit chat for now, so just let's get into the battle. And well, turn 1 was for me. You can see that I'm going to exert my plan of trying to move up as aggressively as I can. The Vampire Lord just goes out of his unit, and I could place him in such a way that there was just one skewer that would be able to see him, the one on the bottom left next to the impossible terrain. The Phantomhosts, they follow him, and they're also out of line of sight of the Great Green Idol. I figured that they can easily just catch a charge of the giant and of the chariot, and also, well, my lord can also just handle a charge of the giant. Then my Court of the Damned with the ghouls and the BSB, they move up a bit, and I run into trouble here, because the Winged Reapers, they can't get out where they are. I already encountered the fact that I have to be careful with how far I move up because of the charge ranges of the orcs. Because with the Warcry they go to movement 5 with Swift Stride, so on average, well, people always think that if you have about a 50% chance of succeeding in a charge, it's an okay charge to make. So 5 plus 9 for the Swift Stride would be 14 inches. With the deployment, we were only 20 inches apart. I think I also misjudged that. Yeah, so I'm not able to move up as much as I would like to, really. Yeah, so it ends up being like this. And from this you can see that my choice of having the first turn wasn't really consequential at all. I didn't move up on the right flank, whilst, yeah, I also couldn't really, I think. Yeah, maybe with the Phantomhosts I could draw out a possible charge of the orcs, and then use that to push over my flank. Then we go to the magic phase. I summoned some zombies with a lack of better magic. Well, the only other spell I tried was Pentagram of Pain with my Vampire Lord. My opponent didn't want me to do that, so he allowed me to have the zombies. Then we go to his turn 1. So he moves up his feral orcs on the flank, and well, he has no charges because he also knows that the Vampire Lord will easily smack down the giant if he's going to charge me. He's looking at some possibilities. He's able to move the giant out of my arc of my Phantomhost, so that's another mistake. Yeah, and then we discuss, he's going to try and chaff up my Vampire Lord. and he tries to do it with a scuttler spider. The spider has a base length of 50 millimeters, which is less than 2 inches. You have to be 1 inch away from me. So if you are trying to draw a line of sight from my base, I believe that I will always be able to draw a line of sight by one side of the base. Because, well, if you draw it out on a piece of paper, it's secondary school mathematics. You can easily find out that you can just block one side of the model and not both sides. Yeah, so he leaves some line of sight on my vampire count's left side in this picture, and yeah, he tries to move everything in such a way that I could get the spider. I could go into the great green idol, but I don't have any other targets there. But essential to this is that he's not allowed to flee with this hero on spider, because if he does, then I can redirect into the big block of orcs. This might not seem appealing, but with my lord having 5 attacks at strength 7 or 6 attacks at strength 5 if I go for paired weapons, with extra attacks for every wounds that I do, it's actually quite interesting to just fly into a big block of orcs and start mowing them down, even though he has quite some combat rest there. Because that would also allow my middle to aggressively move up, whilst now it's currently locked in place. Yeah, we go to his shooting. It's quite ineffective. He misses my vampire lord with his bolt thrower. He just hits on a 4+, and he misses, so that's a shame for him, and that's very good for me. Yeah, and then I believe we go to my turn 2. So in my turn 2, I check the angle of the Phantom Host on his Goblin hero that's still behind the building, and I'm able to see it. We both didn't see it at the time when he was doing the movement, and as it's a friendly game, I would have probably alerted him, like, hey, you're trying to hide there, I know that you're trying to hide there, but I can still see you. But it's an angle we both didn't see, and yeah, as it's standing there, I thought I would have to make use of it. So the Phantom Hosts go in, the Vampire Lord goes into the Goblin hero, which is a mistake. I should not have done that. I should have just... I was afraid of the Scourers shooting at my Vampire hero, because, well, that's one of the few ways he can actually deal with my vampire count, and yeah, I just wanted to be in combat. It does mean that the Great Green Idol is going to have a round of combat, at least one round of combat with my vampire count, and the ghouls will not be able to help him for 1 round at least. So that should be fine normally. Yeah, anyway, we continue with the rest of the turn. I'm just doubting what to do here with the Reapers and the ghouls, and I decide that, well, I'm going to lose the Spirit Host anyway. They are facing a Goblin hero. He might break, he might also stay, but he's testing at leadership 8 and he doesn't have any steadfast. So the wounds are going to be decisive there. Yeah, he might stick, but if he doesn't, then I will overrun, and I will chaff his orcs. Also, if he decides to flee, well, if he breaks from combat, he might also clog up his lines himself. So I think it's quite a safe bet to just move up with the rest of my army now. And paired to that, I would also have to advance on the right. Yeah, in the deployment, I didn't show you where the 3rd Scuttler Spider was. The 3rd Goblin hero, it's on the top left in the woods. It's scouted somewhere over there, I believe. So the unit zombies that I summoned is ideal to block his movements there. Yeah, so the spirit hosts, they do as I had hoped for, and they get into the line of well, the charge lane of the orcs, the big ones. And now it's my well, it's the Orcs and Goblins turn. My opponent is checking the line of sight of the giant, and as you can maybe see, he just doesn't see the ghouls. We drew it out later. Here we go. And yeah, he just doesn't see them. It's very very narrow, but he doesn't. So the charges he makes are the orcs into the phantom hosts, if I'm correct. Yeah, this is already the turn where he did the war cry. He's still, yeah, I could imagine from his viewpoint that this is the turn where he has to go, because the chariots actually have quite a long charge range, and it's something that I also didn't look at, to be honest. Yeah, so definitely some learning involved here. So he does the war cry, all of his chariots charge, his orcs, both blocks they charge, and the giants, one of the giant charges, and the feral orcs charge. So the thaumaturgy wizard, the thaumaturgy wizard and the feral orcs, they go into my ghouls, the big ones go into my phantom hosts, his general has a magic weapon also. The giant goes into the court of the damned with the ghouls, one of the chariot goes into the winged reapers, one of the chariots fails the charge against also the winged reapers, and the orc block goes against the phantom hosts. He again uses the goblin chief on spider to just harass me a bit, and the giant goes over all the way to the flank. I don't know if that was the right move for him, because he could, well, from any angle he could have supported his army, so this move doesn't really help him, and I don't think it really supports any other plans that he had. Anyway, we go to magic. A lot of his shamans are already in combat, actually. So yeah, the thing he wanted to get off is the shamanism scarification on his chariot, who's in combat with my winged reapers. I tried to dispel specifically that one, and I don't manage to. But to get there, he also gets the spell off on his giant, and that must have been, yeah, it was the +1 strength, I believe. And with not a lot of shooting to do, we go to combat. So the first combat we do is the combat with the ghouls. I do some attacks, and I was thinking, like, yeah, I'll get these feral orcs in my flank, I'll have 10 attacks. Yeah, surely some of them will wound, and then, yeah, some of the boar boys, they will fall, and then, yeah, the amount of wounds inflicted on me will be not too bad. And then I didn't do any wounds on the feral orcs. Yeah, so I believe I did 2 wounds. He saved 1 on armor, 1 on the ward save. Yeah, so then he got to wreck my unit quite properly. So half of the models are gone, which is still reasonable considering the fact that I didn't kill any of the feral orcs. The big block of orcs naturally consumes the phantom hosts. Then we go to the winged reapers. Impact hits. There's 6 impact hits from the chariot. Well, 7 because of the skites. He removes 5 wounds from my unit, and then I proceed to just kill his mage. Plus 5 wounds is a lot of wounds from just the impact hits, so I was not happy about that. Then we go to the giant. The giant does his very fancy trick on the ghoul unit, and in the end I only have 2 ghouls left together with the court. and I am able to make the giant very angry in the way that he got wounds and he is going to get more attacks in the next turn. So yeah, right there I'm a bit screwed with the giant hacking away on my court. But the giant is on low HP, so yeah, I have still 6 attacks with the vampires that hit on 3s, wound on 4s, and 8 attacks with the horses. It could be fine. Then, anyway, we continue to the vampire count, and the vampire count fluffs his attacks, all of them. He didn't do anything, and he didn't do any wounds. And then the Great Green Idol goes for a crush attack. He hits on a 5, he does the hit, he does the wound because he's strength 10. AP 10 goes through my armor, and I have a 4+ ward save, which I fail. Then he does D3 + 1 wounds, and he kills me outright. Yeah, so that shouldn't happen very often, and it was also just a very bad mistake on my side. Like, had I moved up the Vampire Lord in turn 2 to any position behind his lines, it would have been so much better. Because then I could have just flung it anywhere, provided that it had survived the skewerer shot. But anyway, there would have been some congestion on his side, some soft cover, maybe hard cover, maybe not even line of sight from his units. I could have easily avoided losing the model in this way. And yeah, then I went for the charge with the winged reapers on the skewer. I don't know if they could have helped out with the giant. I also know that I didn't really want to, because I thought the court could just manage with the giant. So we charged against the skewer, and mostly just to get away from the position I was at, because the orc block I already could charge with the dark coach and the ghouls, so that should be fine. They didn't need another 13 strength 5 attacks, and this way I get to just go through his lines and end up at the other side of the board, which is good. For magic, I desperately tried to resurrect some guys, but I didn't manage, because that was the one spell that my opponent dispelled. And then we can see here something terrible happen. The giant, he doesn't die. He's left on 1 hit point, which I'm not able to remove. Not with the cords, not with the ghouls, not with the reroll from the ghouls. Yeah, it's really terrible, because now my zombie block with my necromancer in there is open for the charge of the giant, who is very angry, who has a lot of attacks. Yeah, that's bad. That is really bad. Yeah, so things have not been going very well for me, but rightfully so. It's also because of the mistakes I mentioned earlier. So first off, the deployment mistake, where I just wanted to go in too aggressively, and then also the mistake of throwing away my vampire account. He could have been just in a ghoul unit even. So for example, in the ghoul unit together with the court, and then I could have just pushed him up, and yeah, he couldn't really have charged in with any, maybe with the, I don't know what would have happened if he had thrown in the big orc block into my ghouls with Court of the Damned, with the Vampire Lord, all kitted out to just slaughter his unit. Yeah, I should look into that. What would have happened? What could have happened, probably. Anyway, the ghouls on the left of the field, they got help from my BSB, and they managed to break the feral orcs. But now they have a giant to face, which is not ideal. And then on the right we break the orcs, and the phantom host overruns into the chases them down. This was a Phantom host that took a lot of wounds just through sheer bad luck. But he had 1 wound left, and he was able to overrun or destroy all of these orcs, which would have been a heroic moment in the battle. And then we go to my opponent's turn. Yeah, my opponent is, I believe, quite eager to play his turn now. So he smashes his giant into my necromancer, the other giant into the ghouls. And yeah, he's going to clean up the great bats that are in the middle of the field. And yeah, on the right I still have my Dark Coach and my Winged Reapers, but he has still 3 skewers hanging around to shoot at everything. So he's just going to take advantage of that. And yeah, the Great Queen Idol, I don't know what he was planning to do with it now for the rest of the game, more or less, because, well, he could have moved it up to any other position than the position it is at. Yeah, so we go to magic, and I believe, again, nothing really consequential happens. Because, well, he only has 1... I believe he only had 1 mage left. But anyway, he's still able to put on some spells. And then in combat, yeah, the unfortunate event happens where his giant apparently was quite mad, and he smacks my my necromancer. My opponent was debating about how many attacks to put on the necromancer. And I told him, like, yeah, if I were you, I would just put all the attacks on there, because, yeah, even with my Vampire Lord, seeing how he can just fluff all of his attacks whilst he's hitting on 2s and often also wounding on low rolls, but then even you sometimes you just miss all your rolls, and it's incredible. But yeah, if you really want something to die, just focus on it. And then obviously access is a shame, but even if you lose your giant in this case, you're kicking out my magic, and the giant was at half points anyway already, so that didn't really matter, I would say. Yeah, the other combat, he also just severely smacks up my ghouls. And these giants, they were just wrecking the entire battlefield apart. Anything they encountered, they just destroyed. Yeah, so the giant in the middle, he already destroyed a small block of ghouls, a Court of the Damned. Now my general, and he's going to wreck the unit of zombies. And the other giant didn't do a lot yet. But yeah, it's my turn now. I already had to test once, so I have to test another time at the start of my turn, because I don't have any wizard in my army anymore. So had I had my vampire account still, it would have been okay, and I wouldn't have had to test. So I lose another 2 ghouls, and then we go into combat. My opponent is able to check with his giant on the left whether he still has steadfast. He does, because I don't have any ranks. So he still retains his Born to Fight strength. So he strikes at strength 7 at my BSB, who has his rerollable armor. He does something like 5 wounds or so, and I happily save 4 of those. So I only get 1 wound, but in return, with 4 attacks, I'm not able to kill the giant on the left, who was by this time also still just on 2 wounds left or something. Yeah, so for the rest of the game, I am on the right with my coach and with my Winged Reapers. The Winged Reapers, they could move up thanks to the coach giving them allowing them to march, because the Winged Reapers on their own, they're not able to march. So the coach really helped them out here, and I positioned them in a wrong way, but anyway. Yeah, so my opponent quite happily moves the important blocks out of line of sight of my Winged Reapers. Should have just turned them towards the field rather than facing just a bolt thrower. But yeah, by this time I was already kind of giving up on the battle, which in a friendly game you can do. I actually shouldn't have done, because if you're in a tournament and you play multiple rounds and your mindset is to just give up at some point, and you might still just lose a couple of points where you don't have to lose them, and then it will affect your score in the end, without having to have any influence, obviously. Yes, so my ghouls on the right are smacking happily on a chariot, but they don't manage to kill it. And in my turn, the Dark Coach doesn't have any other targets, and he's otherwise going to get charged, and it's going to be awful. So I just decide to run an experiment, see what happens if I throw it into a big block of orcs. And the Winged Reapers, I tried to get away from the situation, but I wasn't able to. So yeah, they didn't do anything really anymore. And then we go to the combat with the orcs. The impact hits kill a couple, then the attacks of the vampire kill a couple, and I get to make a vampiric roll at the end of the round. Then come his attacks back. So this is the Edbasher unit. He has strength 5 with paired weapons, so he has offensive 5 I believe. So he hits me on 3s, wounds me on 4s. Does 6 wounds, I save a couple, so I only get 2 or 3 wounds. The general also, I don't know if at least the general didn't do a wound. I ended up on 3 wounds, and then with the vampiric roll I went back to 2 wounds. So that was a combat I actually won. But then he made his steadfast check. But seeing that, yeah, if there had not been a character in there, I might be inclined to believe that the Dark Coach could have ground them down over time. But the orcs still get their Born to Fight rule, so they still keep their strength 5, which is tough on the Dark Coach. Next round he just smacks the coach. His Great Green Idol goes into the Winged Reapers, and the Winged Reapers they take some damage, and also the chariot. You can't see it on the board, I think. Well, you can barely see it. The thing next to the Winged Reapers is one of the last shamans on the chariot, and he just in one round he manages to kill all of the Winged Reapers. The only thing I have left at this point is my BSB. My BSB charges his goblins just for sheer fun. He decides to flee, and yeah, basically this is the end of the game. Yeah, I definitely should have played a lot of things differently, and next time I will do so. I should be more careful with this list than this. And I know that I shouldn't be so aggressive with this Vampire Covenant list. I don't know why I did it in this way. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the list of my opponent is, I think it's an interesting list. Some tweaks to it would be to maybe get 1 or 2 chariots without a shaman on top. Because for any unit that has a champion, you can easily just challenge the shaman out and not have to suffer the impact hits on your unit. So alternatives would be to give the Edbashers a champion, or just charge in a Goblin Chief together with Boar Chariot to prevent this. Otherwise, I think it's quite a nice list. It's quite an interesting list, and the Goblin Chiefs they really help in the chaffing department. And yeah, it's a list that can handle quite a lot of opponents quite nicely, I think. So in the end it's an 18-2 victory for the Orcs and Goblins, and hopefully next time the numbers will be turned the other way around. See you next time!